Okie dokie. Here we are. We are live. It is 11 o'clock right on the dot. I'm a person that likes to be on time, so here we are. So yeah, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see everyone again. I actually feel like this feels like a bit of a hangout, you know? Um, yeah, it says I've been live for 10 minutes. That's really weird. I hope that's not the case because I've just been sitting here preparing, but who actually knows? Anyways, welcome, welcome, welcome. I put on my spring shirt today with flowers on it because I thought, you know what? Spring is almost here. It's almost coming. So I'm going to not wear a turtleneck. I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to wear something springy. So yeah, let's get this started, shall we? Let me pull my little notes up. How are you guys today? I'm doing great. Okie dokie. So, like I said, welcome. It's nice to see everybody again. And during this live, I know last week I had some issues with the comments for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. I couldn't really see them. So I'm going to try and be a little bit mindful of that today so that if you have comments, I might be able to check them out and look at them and answer any questions that come through. Hi, Heather. Heather's always the first one here. Thank you so much for your support. Yes, so I'm going to try and monitor the comments a little bit better this week. As I said, I'm still kind of getting used to this whole Facebook Live thing. It's a little bit strange, a little bit foreign, a little bit new to me, but that's okay. We're getting through it together. So I do highly encourage any comments or any participation of any kind. I think at the end, if there are any questions, I'll go ahead and try and go through them and answer them as best as I can for you. So, firstly, thank you so much for all your positive feedback on the stress live last week. It was so nice to get all of your comments and messages and hear that it helped you or you learned something. And that is the biggest reason why I do any of this, why I continue to show up for you guys, because it truly warms my heart to know that I'm making a difference in anyone's life. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I actually think that stress and today's topic, which is negative thought cycles or patterns, actually go really well together, because a lot of the reasons that we feel stress in our life has a lot to do with the negative thought patterns that are happening in our brains. So I think they actually go really nicely together. And the reason I chose this topic was because of you guys. You shared in the Facebook group when I asked how I could support you. One of the biggest things was with regards to negative thoughts and how to combat them. And a lot of you expressed some frustration that you're doing all you can and you're trying so hard, but you're still struggling with negative thoughts. So we're going to go through all of that today, and hopefully at the end, you'll have gotten something really valuable out of this. So similarly to last week, and I think this is how I'm going to structure the lives moving forward. I think it's important before we begin to make changes in our lives or we begin to shift things to understand the reason they're happening or understand the history behind them. Because if we don't have that, it's really hard to understand why things are happening and how to change them without having some of that background or some of that history or some of the knowledge, really. So I thought we would first kind of dive into the anatomy of our thoughts. So to understand the negative thought patterns, we have to know a little bit about our thoughts and how they work in our brains. So fact number one, and this is probably the most important fact, if you take anything away from this today, it's this: we think upwards of 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000. That is a huge number of thoughts that are running through our brains consistently. They are always go, 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 go. Half of them, we don't even know they're happening. They're just running in the background. So, and of those 60,000 thoughts, 90% of them are on repeat. Let that sink in for a minute. 90% of 60,000 thoughts are on a repetitive cycle. They're on a repetitive loop of thoughts you've had over and over and over and over again. That is a huge number of repeating thoughts. And on top of that, by the time you're 35 years of age, I'm not sure who's over 35, who's under 35, but by the time we hit that age, most of our thoughts are already hardwired into it. into us. It's on autopilot. We just wake up and we start to think the same set of thoughts we were thinking yesterday. They become habitual in nature. That's what happens. So believe it or not, when you're trying to make changes or you're trying to notice your negative thought patterns and you're trying to think positive thoughts, and you start to get frustrated and you're wondering, like, why is it, like, why can't I do this? Why can't I get the hang of this? Like, we need to take a step back and understand that most of our thoughts are there because they've been repeated over and over again. It's like when you drive to work. You drive to, well, maybe not now, but when we were driving to work, like, you take the same route, it becomes like you could sleep on the way to work. Please don't do that. I don't condone that. And by the time you get there, you don't even know how you got there because it's automatic. So in our thoughts are the same way. They become automatic, they become habitual, and the more we think them, the more we continue to think them. So this has taken time. This hasn't happened overnight. Our negative thought patterns are the same things we've been thinking over and over and over and over again. So it's only natural that if it took this much time to find yourself in this negative thought pattern, it's going to take a lot of time to break them down. So I want you guys to remember and be really kind and gentle with yourself when you've decided, that's it, I've had enough of these negative thoughts, I'm going to change them, I'm going to fix them, that this is a process that's going to take practice, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of patience. So give yourselves a warm hug. Even like thinking to yourself, I want to change my negative thoughts, is a step in the right direction, and I'm super proud of you for that. So another thing we need to know about our thoughts is they're always tethered to an emotion. Now, if we think, okay, I have 60,000 thoughts a day, we don't remember all 60,000 of them. But what we do remember are the ones that drive an emotion, whether that's a positive emotion or a negative emotion. Those are the ones that stand out. Those are the ones that have an impact on our day. So if you have, for example, if you think, if your negative thought pattern is, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, you're going to naturally feel that kind of, like that heaviness on your heart. You're going to feel like sadness that comes along with it. It's tethered to an emotion, which is what makes these negative thought patterns so strong in nature, because they have an emotion that's linked to them, if that makes sense. And as we learned last week with stress, we have the power through thought alone to dictate what our reality is going to look like. Starting to make sense? Starting to come full circle? So if our thoughts can create our reality, if we are stuck in this negative thought pattern loop, which is why it becomes a vicious cycle, it's because, like, if we're thinking, oh, I'm not worthy, we're going to attract more of the same consistently. We're going to have, like, our reality is going to be dictated by what it is we're thinking. So if we continue to think in that way, we're going to continue to bring more evidence into our circle that suggests that, making it even more difficult to break the negative pattern, because obviously your experiences, the things that you're seeing in your life, will actually provide evidence for the negative thought and will keep it in its place. So all that to be said, I don't want to sound negative. See what I did there? Think about it though, and I want to put this in perspective. If a negative thought can have that big of an impact on our reality, the way we perceive things, the way we interpret things, imagine for a moment, if you will, what a positive thought could do. That's right. If you can think a negative thought and it can have an impact on your emotions and how you're feeling, a positive thought can do the same. But again, it's going to take time and practice, because we need to break those habits, break those cycles. And finally, this is probably the most important thing. You are not your thoughts. Let me say that again for the people in the back and shout it from my megaphone. You are not your thoughts. Just because you think it does not for 1 second make it real. It's just something that you've habitually gotten used to, that you've habitually heard time and time and again. So naturally you think, if it's in my brain, it must be true. No, it's not. So it's another thing. I can't stress enough that you are not your thoughts. And I'm just going to keep saying that over and over and over again. The thoughts are being triggered by past experiences, some of which aren't even your own. So now that we've learned a little bit about our thoughts, Let's talk about the characteristics of negative thoughts, because I want you to understand a few things about the negative thoughts themselves. Number one, they're believable. Because to you, even though it might seem illogical if you were to say it out loud, for example, if your negative thought is, I am the worst human being that ever lived. To say that out loud seems illogical, but when you're thinking that in your brain, it's totally believable to you. You actually believe you're the worst person in the whole entire world. That's how profound an impact these negative thoughts can have. Number two, they're typically catastrophic in nature. We just assume worst case scenario all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to blow this presentation. Oh, I'm going to blow my test. That's catastrophic thinking. It's thinking the worst case scenario, which is anxiety inducing. That's automatically going to trigger the stress hormones and all the things that are happening in our body when we feel stressed out. They're learned. Negative thoughts are learned. They're not just there. We weren't born with negative thoughts. We weren't born into this world and thinking this negative way. We pick them up along the way. So they're a learned behavior that become habitual because we continuously think them over and over again. They tend to be full of shoulds. I should do this. I must do that. I ought to do this. They're never really facts. They're all based on feeling as though you should be doing something, which obviously, if you think you should be doing something but you're not, you're going to feel frustration. So that again is going to keep us in that loop. They make you feel bad. I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but if you're having these negative thoughts, you're not feeling good enough. You're not feeling like you're worth something. It's going to make you feel bad. And as we know, that starts to create your personal reality. They can be self-sabotaging. And here's what I mean by that. So having a negative thought pattern can make you not take action on something, not do something you want to do because you're fearful, you're scared. So maybe you won't take a chance and go for that promotion, or you won't take the opportunity to sing the national anthem at your school's pep rally. I don't know, I'm just making things up. Or alternatively, you will take action, but it's an action that might be perceived as negative because of the pattern that's in your brain, if that makes sense. And they're biased. You're just going to, if you're a person that identifies as negative, and we're all working towards not being that, it's easier to think more negative thoughts when you're in that spiral. It is much easier to continue to think negatively than it is to start thinking positively. And based on some of your comments, I know that, and we know that to be true. And finally, one of the other characteristics is they're personal and they're persistent. You're always assigning some sort of blame to yourself, or your negative thought is all about you. It's not about anyone else. It's all about you. And we're so hard on ourselves all the time. And they're persistent. They're just going to continue. It's like Groundhog Day. Like, you wake up and you think the whole set of negative thoughts over and over and over again because they become habitual. So I'm sure why you're here, Denise. How do I overcome these thoughts? I'm going to share some things with you. Number one, like I said before, have some patience. The negative thought cycle didn't happen overnight. It happened over time. It happened because maybe somebody said something to you, or you had some sort of emotional situation that caused you to start having negative thoughts. So it's going to take time to unravel them. So be patient and be gentle. We have to understand it. Like, if we're setting ourselves up for disappointment if we think like tomorrow we're just going to start thinking positively and that's it, I'm done. It's not being realistic with ourselves, and it's not being gentle with ourselves. So I want you to always remember, when you're going through this process of releasing the negative thought patterns, that it's going to take time, and that is okay. Half the battle is the fact that you're willing and ready to do it. So, I mean, I am proud of you for that. And number two is awareness. Because our negative thoughts are linked to emotion, when you begin to feel feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, when those emotions start to set in, I want you to stop, take a minute, and ask yourself, what was I thinking before that happened? when I started feeling this way, what was the thought that was going through my mind? Become aware and observe the thought and label it. Literally label it. That's a negative thought that's coming through. That's why I'm feeling this way. Recognize the links when they're happening. And as well, what's the story you've been telling yourself and what's been running through your mind when the negative thoughts come up? Like, because we're all telling ourselves some story, which is the story itself is those negative thoughts that trigger the emotions. So what's the story you're telling yourself? What's the root of it? What's the origin of it? Really get curious. Start a thought journal. Start to write down what some of your most persistent negative thoughts are, because just seeing them on paper, like put them in your phone and or voice note them or write them in a journal, whatever your preferred method is. But once you start seeing them, they become easier to recognize as they happen. And the more you recognize them and the more you write them down and the more you explore them and analyze whether or not they're true, the more you can begin to distrust the negative thoughts. And that's ultimately what we want here. I want you to start not trusting your own negative thoughts, which sounds silly, and I'm laughing as I say it, but it's true. Understand your pattern of negative thinking, because this is also important too, because we all tend to think in some sort of pattern. And I'm going to list some of the most common ones. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the example of giving presentations at work to be able to conceptualize the types of patterns of negative thinking. I apologize if I'm speaking too fast. I feel like I'm just like racing because I'm just so excited about this topic and getting it out to you. So forgive me if I'm speaking too fast. Okay, so understanding your pattern. So by understanding your pattern or your style, it becomes easier for you to notice when the negative thoughts are happening. So number one, black or white thinking. It's either that, this, or that. There's no in between. I am no good at presentations. That's black and white. There's no gray. There's no I'm sometimes good or I'm okay. No, I suck at them. That's a simple black and white way of thinking. Number two, mental filter, meaning you pick one teeny tiny detail that's negative and you dwell on that instead of everything else. So for example, you give a presentation at work and you mess up in reporting out some of the numbers, and it's an hour presentation and you messed up for 2 minutes. Mental filter means you're going to focus on those two minutes and those 2 minutes alone. You're not going to think about all the wonderful, amazing information you gave or how you delivered it. No. You're going to think about those 2 minutes that you made a mistake. That's your mental filter. Catastrophic thinking, like we talked about, is always assuming an unfavorable outcome. In the presentation example, it would be like, oh man, I blew that presentation, I'm getting fired. Which, when I say it out loud, it seems really illogical, but the power of negative thoughts is, to you, that seems very real. Like you actually think that's your pattern, that you're going to be fired due to a poor presentation. Overgeneralization. Just because you experience something one time doesn't mean it's going to be the same every time. So if you are an overgeneralizer in your negative thought pattern, you are going to say, okay, I blew that presentation one time. I now am going to blow every presentation from now until the end of time. That's overgeneralization, assuming that because you made a mistake once, you're going to do it forever. Discounting the positive. So if you, like we talked about before, made a small mistake, but you delivered an amazing presentation, and all your colleagues are like, man, that was amazing, Denise, you did such a great job. I'm so proud of you. That was so informative. And you say things like, well, I mean, I messed up, or it wasn't that great, or anybody could have done it. That's discounting the positive. Jumping to conclusions. Thinking something's going to go wrong without any evidence of it. Oh man, I'm going to blow this presentation. It's going to happen. You're jumping to conclusions. There's no evidence to support that you're going to blow it. You don't know that. You can't see into the future. You're just making an assumption and jumping to conclusions. Emotional reasoning. So you assume your negative emotions are true and proof of what it was. So I'm terrified of public speaking. So because I'm terrible at public speaking, I can't advance in my career because I can't give presentations because I'm terrible at public speaking. So then you don't take any risks or move to improving your career because you think I'm no good at presentations, therefore I can't advance. And saying should statements. I love this. Don't be a should hole. A should hole. Don't say things like I'm not going to say don't. When you find yourself saying things like, I should be more advanced in my career, I should have found my purpose, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. That's not helpful. So don't be a should hole. Be nice to yourself. You want to have intention and find evidence when negative thoughts come up. This is very important too. So let's say you have a negative thought that pops into your head that we all now know feels completely real to you. I want you to stop. I want you to analyze, and I want you to decide what evidence is there to support this negative thought. So if your negative thought is I'm worthless, I'm not good at anything, what is the evidence to suggest that? What are you basing that negative thought off of? It becomes difficult when you stop to think about it. Why do I think this way? Oftentimes it's because somebody else has given you that feeling, or someone's told you something in the past to make you feel that way. But what I want you to do instead is to find evidence that supports otherwise. Why am I worthy? I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm compassionate. I have a big circle of friends. My family loves me. I mean the world to my children. This is evidence that you are worthy. So when we take the evidence that suggests otherwise, it's a lot easier to recognize the negative pattern, but we have to find that evidence to suggest otherwise and be as detailed as possible. Write down every last little minute detail that suggests that negative thought isn't the truth. I'm getting the frog in my throat. I still can't see comments, guys. I'm going to need to figure this out. So if you're leaving comments, I'm really sorry. I will look for them at the end. Technology. So ask for feedback and recognize harsh self-talk. So if you have a negative thought that comes up all the time, like I'm unworthy, ask a loved one, someone you're comfortable with, or you can be vulnerable with. Stop and ask them, hey, I'm feeling like I'm unworthy. Make sure it's someone you feel safe with though. And ask them what they think about that, because I guarantee you they'll be like, are you kidding me? Here's 600 reasons why you're worthy of the world and I love you. So even just getting that kind of validation from friends or family can really help to start breaking that cycle, because you're hearing it from somebody else. And when I say recognize harsh self-talk, what I mean is watch your language. Don't be mean to yourself. When you catch yourself being like, oh, I'm stupid, like I suck at this, like really be mindful of those things you're saying, because you're perpetuating the thought cycle and fueling it. So when you catch yourself, be like, okay, wait a minute, hold on. I just said I'm dumb or I'm stupid. No, what's the evidence to suggest otherwise? I graduated university at the top of my class. I'm really well respected in my job. Stop it and find evidence. And then decide how you prefer to think. If you want to be a positive person, you need to write down, how does a positive person think? How do they show up? What do they do differently that I'm not doing? And I want you to start embodying what that person does, regardless of whether or not you feel that you are positive. So I need you to fake it till you make it a little bit, people. Fake it until you make it. Start acting like the person that you like, that is positive. Start embodying their traits. Start showing up as they would, because as you do that, you're retraining the brain to start showing up in a different way and to start instilling positivity into your life, as opposed to getting caught in the negative thought spiral. And then be mindful of thought stopping, because I know all of us just want to stop negative thoughts, but we can't just stop them, because if we stop them, we are pushing them away and they're going to rear their ugly heads again and again. You can't stop them, but what you can do is you can recognize them and you can observe them and you can work on finding your evidence to suggest that they're not true, but don't try and stop them, because it's only going to make it worse and it's only going to come back again and again. So try to avoid thought stopping, because it's not helpful, okay? Some really beneficial questions to ask yourself when you're going through the negative thought spiral and you notice it's happening. Number one, is this thought helpful? Is this helping me? Number 2, is there another way to look at this? What does this look like if I look at it from a positive perspective? Number 3, is this an actual fact? Like, do I have evidence that supports this, or is this just an opinion? What is this? Number 3, number 4, how would my best friend see this? Like we talked about, getting that personal feedback. Number 5, what advice would I give someone if they came to me with this? If someone said, I'm unworthy, what advice would you give them? Because I guarantee you it would be filled with love and compassion and helpful tips and tricks, right? So you want to give yourself the same thing. Whew, I am thirsty again. My apologies. So I said I was going to look for questions, but I can't see them. So let me see if I minimize this, if I can see questions. I cannot. Okay, well, if you have questions, leave them for me in the comments and I will respond to them as best as I can. And hopefully you found this helpful. Honestly, I know a lot of us get into these spirals and they're really difficult to navigate and they're really difficult to get out of. But again, continue to be nice to yourself and gentle. And actually, to help you along with this, I am going to be posting a bit of a workbook in the Facebook group here after the live is over that's going to help you to challenge your negative thoughts, and a bit of a thought journal just to give you an idea of what that looks like so you can begin your own journey of combating your negative thought spirals. Whew, I feel like that's the first breath I've taken this whole time. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for giving me your time. Thank you so much for allowing me the space to give you this information. Again, if you have any questions, I'm sorry I can't see them. Please leave them for me below in the comments and I will absolutely respond to them as quickly as I can. You should see the workbook within a couple of hours. I'll be putting that up for you, so let me know how you make out with that. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. It means the absolute world. And yeah, if there was 10 minutes of me just sitting here at the beginning of this, that's what I was doing. All right, guys, have yourself a great day. And oh, one last thing. I think next week we'll do Thursday at 2 p.m. again. It's going to filter, or it's going to flip-flop between Thursdays and Fridays for at least the next 6 weeks, but I will keep you informed. But next week we will aim for Thursday. And with that, make it a great day, guys. Have a good one.